Hey guys, this is Gamer Cole, Fuel for Gamers, and we are playing some Space Engineers, and I hear I have a little contraption built with the newest patch, which was released, I believe, yesterday, and here we go. We have some small, some contraptions which implements some new items, and here we are. The new items are the connector, the collector, and the conveyor tubes, which actually can use conveyors. So now the conveyors are actually useful, so you can transfer items from one place to another. So the simplest setup here, which I did, was now using the tubes. The basics with the tubes are pretty much like, even though there's no conveyors or anything here, there's just a small cargo container with two tubes connected, one to the assembler and one to the refinery. Now by them being connected, the assembler works in a different fashion now. It doesn't just the refinery doesn't just dump all the resources it makes into the assembler anymore. Now, I don't know why I'm flying away. Now, it will actually, I know why. I need to put a gravity generator down. That will help. Okay, so now, it will actually, if you tell it to produce something, go to production, and you can see that it's red. It's saying that it doesn't have the items needed to produce these plates, but if I click on it, it will start the plate regardless. Now what it's doing is it's pulling what it needs from the refinery, the iron ingots, and it's pulling it through and pulling it into the assembler. And this was a little test to see if it could go through the tubes, and it worked perfectly. The only thing is, even if the assembler was right next to it, attached with the regular slots, it will work just the same. But I don't know why I put a cargo container. This could be a conveyor or a cargo container. It doesn't really matter which is in between, as long as there's something that can, connect both sides to each other. And once they're connected, what's cool about that is you could take things from, let's say, the refinery here and drag them into the small cargo container, and it will do it without having to take it out into your inventory and then move it to the other one. Because the tube is connected, you're pretty much telling it to send it to the chest. And once it's in the chest, even though there's nothing on the refinery, but because the assembler is connected to the chest, I can actually go produce it by pressing a plate, and there it goes. It took a little bit, it takes a second longer when it pulls it out from the chest, it seems. It has a little bit of a delay, but I could say, hey, make 10 plates, or 30 plates, and there it goes, and you can see that it pulled the plates, it's pulling the plates that it pulled the iron that it needs into the assembler. Alright. And so we'll just tell this to stop. Okay, so that's fine. And I think you could do that in the reverse order. Deconstruct, drag it into the chest, without actually taking it out. Now over here, this contraption is much more complex because we got collectors, which are this block right here, and I'll show you what they look like right now. Oh, it's already on my bar. Okay, so a collector is just a regular square block with a yellow ring or rim that leads into a slot where items can actually flow into. So if I were to, say, place this thing standing up and then drop an item over it, like stone, it'll actually suck in, and you can see that the stone, I'm sorry if you didn't see that, but it actually sucked in the stone inside of itself. And because it doesn't lead anywhere else right now, if I delete this, oh, I guess it deletes the items with it. That sucks. But, okay, so there's something to be warned about, in creative at least, and probably maybe even, and you can't get the stuff out. The only way to get it out is, unless it's connected to something else, is you can place this, drop an item in here. So we're going to drop it. So it sucked that item in. So there's an item in there, and then we can go to a control desk over here, go to the control panel, and you can see that the new collector is there, and which is collector 26, and you can scroll down. Collector 26 has a welder, and you can actually pull it out. Oh, apparently since it's not connected to anything, you can't pull it out, so it's pretty much stuck in there, and if I delete it, it's gone. So that kind of sucks. So plan ahead, apparently. Alright, so this contraption, you might be thinking, well, what is all this? And if you look in the back, it gets worse. So now what I did was, instead of the refinery being connected with just a regular tube to the assembler, like so, if I take these resources out and put it back into the refinery, the assembler, if I tell it to start producing something, it will not pull it from the refinery. Now you might be thinking, well, why would he want that? That makes things, you know, more complicated. And the regular setup like that up there is fine. It works, it's easy, but the way I wanted to do it was much more complex. So in order to get the stuff into the refinery, assembler from the refinery, I built this cool, neat little contraption. Now this thing, which is the connector block, and I'll show you right up above it what it looks like, that's a connector block. I don't know why they have two circles. Don't ask me about that. I guess for small items and large items that come out of it. Now, and I have a collector right next to it, like just like that. And then I have a conveyor, because conveyors are the only things that could do L shapes, because I can't have a tube going outward and then going straight, or there's no angled tubes yet, which is kind of a bummer, no right angle tubes. So for now, you just have to use conveyor blocks like that to do so, or space them out one more apart so you can have a tube connected and make it look nicer. Okay, so we can delete these. So now that you know what those are, because the connector, pretty much all it does is it's connected to the refinery, and when you turn it on, and it'll start taking all the items out of the refinery and throwing them out into space, pretty much. And we don't want that. So that's why we have the collector block in front of it. Now the collector block will suck in all the items that it spits out. So, and because they're so close together, it'll just automatically just go one to the other. Like, I think they still get spawned just for an instant, and then they get sucked in. Then from there, so if I turned this spitter on, it would suck it into the collector, and the collector would send it through these tubes into the assembler. So I can say, go to my control panel, go refinery dump to assembler. Now that's pretty much, I named it that. That's the spitter that's going to throw from the refinery and send it down the tube to the assembler. So we're going to turn both of those on, and you can see now, oh, all of a sudden, bam, items appeared. It sent everything like automatically through the tube, and now this thing has silicon wafers. Now from there, if I wanted to, I can say, hey, build some bulletproof glass now, and it will do it. Alright, so now after I build the bulletproof glass, I'm like, well, I want my machine so I don't have to manually take out everything either, like from the assembler. Now I could drag this down, but it's kind of irritating to go like hold the mouse clicker and scroll the mouse wheel and then find the chest, and you can, oh, apparently I can't even just drop it in the chest. Oh, that's right, because I don't have it connected with the regular tube. But if I did have it connected with the regular tube and conveyors, it would work perfectly fine. But my system, this system does not work like that. It works with these pipes that suck from one thing and spit it out into another tube that sends it to another. And then everything else works the same way. So if I wanted to say my other connection, which is to dump from this assembler down this tube, which this is the thing, this end right here is the thing that's going to suck from the assembler, and it's going to spit it out into this collector and send it into this inventory crate. So this inventory crate, let's take out all this stuff so it's empty, just to show it works. And then I'm going to drop in some plates, and I'm going to say, go to the control panel, assembler dump to cargo container. So assembler dump to cargo. That's the only one I have, and I have this sending to a different chest than what the refinery would send its ore to, or its like smelted ore. So let's go to assembly dump to cargo and turn it on. It's going to send. Now it doesn't suck up the resources that the assembler uses to produce things, so those items will stay there and they're safe and they won't move. So that could be ups and downs. Maybe they'll give options for that later. But so now it sucked up all the plates, and then we can actually go to, because I have everything connected still, even though they're separate parts. We can go to the inventory and scroll down and look at the large cargo container. It has 15 bulletproof glass. Now this cargo container is actually not connected to anything, so it won't work. We can't drag it from one thing to another. So we would have to actually go to the container ourselves. So actually I'm going to fix that problem right now on screen while recording. And what we do is we would just connect it with tubes and send it somewhere else. So let's say we wanted, yes, So I don't think the assembler sadly has no more slots open to be connected except from the front. So I mean, I could say, hey, let's bring it to this chest right here, and let's see here. Oh, and then we'll actually, like, because, like, you see how the tube can only go in one direction, so, or, sorry, that's not the conveyor block. We need a conveyor block. We're going to convey it, so that's like our corner. The conveyor blocks are really good corners, is what they're used for. And then the tubes are going to go, see, and then we're going to have to do a conveyor block, those are touching. So let's go conveyor block, and we're going to use tubes that go over this one. And then actually a conveyor block down, and then a tube connecting. And then, okay, so that looks a little may look a little complicated, but all I did was I made a solid direct tunnel connected to the assembler. So now if I wanted to, I could say, hey, open up this cargo container, it's empty. I could go to the cargo, where's the large cargo container? Oh, something is going on. Oh, what the heck? It seems to be like taking it out of something and then, oh, well, let's turn off the assembler dump to cargo and see where the items ended up. Okay, ended up in one of the connectors. Connector 16. So the connector, that would be that, so it ended up in that. Oosh. Okay, so I will have to refine that later on, so ignore this. But pretty much, you know what, you get the gist of it. If it's connected with the tube into one of the things you're using, you can actually pull, like, so if that tube would have worked, I would have grabbed it from that inventory and I could have grabbed it right out from the assembler, because it would have sent it to the assembler and put it into my inventory. Alright, so back to what I was actually showing. So like I said, let's just pull out of this connector. See, I was able to pull out of that connector because that connector is attached to the tube that's attached to the assembler. Alright, so now I can actually drag this glass back in and just show you again. I'm going to assembler dump to cargo. It's going to bring it to the cargo container. And then from there, I don't have that one connected to anything else. But if I wanted to, I could have it connected to something else or have it resend back from there to the assembler, which I do not have that yet. And that tube would have worked perfectly if it would have. But another thing is, so the refinery, I can have the refinery send its goods to the other cargo chest, and I'm going to say refinery dump to the cargo chest. Turn that on. Let's make sure I turn off the other one. Alright. Oops, I probably already sent it to the assembler now because of that. Nope, okay. So it dumps it, because you have to make sure to turn it on and then turn it off when you're done with it. Now I sent it down to this cargo container. Oh, I thought I did. Cargo container 5. Did it send it to this one? Oh, that's right, because I had the other thing left on. It sent it to the assembler and then sent it immediately into there. So, okay, I'm sorry. I apologize for all this screw-ups, but I'm still learning my own system. So I put it into the refinery, and it's going to automatically take it. It's going to bring it down. So what's happening here is I turned on the connector that sucks to the to that cargo box, and it's actually right here. So this thing sucks the item from the refinery and spits it out into this collector, which collects it and then drops it into this cargo container. And this cargo container has the wafers, okay? And now what I'm going to be doing is I could turn on my other thing to say, hey, I want the cargo container, this suction thing, to turn on to suck out the items from this, spit it out into the collector. It's going to send it up this conveyor tube and into the assembler. So I'm going to turn off the refinery dump to cargo and say, okay, cargo dump to assembler. And now you have the wafers in there. And I think that was all of them. Apparently it didn't send all of them for some reason. It sent some to large cargo container 5, which is this one. Alright, that's really weird, because I could have sworn I had the assembler dump. Oh, that's on. That's why. Assembler dump to cargo was on. But, so what it was doing was it was sending it up taking it to the assembler, and then sending it all the way back down to the cargo. Well, this cargo box. I don't know why I didn't send it all of it. It only intercepts some, apparently. It like splits it in half, I guess. Alright, so we got all the silicon, and then it can be, and then you can create. So that's a really more of a complex way of doing things. By using collectors, you can turn them, like, turn specific ones on. You only really want one on at a time, otherwise it's going to send it to one thing and then spit it directly to another thing. So that's why I keep them all off, and till I need them, and then I turn them on and I can send them that way. That probably seems a little complex, but the upsides to this is what I really wanted, because in that system, once the ore is refined, it stays in the refinery, and to move it to a chest, you would have to manually do this. Go up to the refinery, let's pretend it had stuff in it. I could drag that stuff to the cargo container, so I can be like, drag it to the cargo container. Or I could take it out and manually bring it myself. So that's still kind of manual, you know what I mean? You're dragging it from one slot to another. And I didn't want that. I wanted automation. So that's why my thing, I could just, yeah, it's still, I have to turn it on. I flip 2 switches on and from my refinery, and it'll send everything it has to the cargo container, lickety-split. So it could be completely filled with all sorts of different types of ores, with a bunch of different slots filled with, like, one of 1,000 different irons, and it would send it all and put it right nicely into the chest. And then once it's in the chest, I really wanted to make it so that this chest was connected to the assembler. So if I wanted to, I could start saying, dump all the items you have into the assembler. Now the problem with that is you don't really get to choose, so it's just going to dump the first thing that it finds, and it's going to dump it. If there's a lot of that thing, it's just going to send all of that thing to the refiner, or to the assembler. So that's kind of one downside. The only way you can get around that right now, because the options are so limited, as you can see in the control panel, with the collectors, this is a collector, and it can only throw out and collect all. And by throw out, it means, are you allowing it to throw out items, yes or no? To toss out items into space, and hopefully you have a collector that's going to collect it, otherwise it's just going to go, you could, like, it's just going to be lost. And by collect all, it means take everything from the thing it's connected to and use those items to toss out. So if I have throw out on and collect all off, it won't throw out anything, but it will throw out anything that it has in the collector's inventory, but it won't throw out anything from, like, whatever it's connected to. So by saying collect all and it's connected to a chest, it'll take out everything from that chest and start spitting it out. So it's like you kind of have to have both of these options on later on, hopefully. Instead of, they will keep this collect all, but maybe add another option that you can set specific things and amounts, or and thresholds, maybe even, like, say, hey, keep the assembler at 100 iron and 100 cobalt and 100 of this, and you can set all those things. Hopefully they will do that down the line, but right now it's very simplistic. So I mean, the system isn't fully, it works, but it's not fully logical. You would run into some kinks, like I said, when you're trying to dump all the cargo into the assembler. It won't work because the assembler can't hold that much, but you can have it producing all sorts of stuff. So again, the assembler has the inventory, and I can say, hey, dump that back to the cargo. Let's make sure all these other things are off and dump that back to the cargo. And then it will send this back to the cargo. Sadly, it'll send it into here, but this thing is only supposed to, well, actually, I'm sorry. It won't dump the silicon wafers. It will only dump produced items. So, like, by turning that on and telling this thing to produce, let's say, 5 more blocks, as it creates, it's going to immediately ship it over to the cargo container. And that's one plus side. And what's another cool thing about that is this cargo container could be a ship. Alright, this could be a ship that you park closely, or you don't even have to have it that close. Well, since there's gravity, there is. If you turned off gravity, I could have this ship all the way over here, and then it could be spitting out items, and the items will be floating, and then hit the collector, and then collect into a box. So yeah. That would be pretty cool. So, like, honestly, I could say, hey, dump all the parts that you're creating, and I can start loading up a ship filled with stuff. And And that's pretty cool. And then if I had another thing, which I could go, hey, this cargo container dump, this thing is like I'm gonna call it the dumper. It dumps items out, all right? And then you can have a collector facing it, which is, let's just go like this. And then put the collector out. Oops. And then you can have an assembler right here. And then pretty much what that does is you could say now turn on this collector, have it take all the items from this chest and start spinning it into the collector. The collector collects it, sends it to the assembler, and the assembler will then, you know, have the items in here. And it will only send items it can actually hold. So I think it'll send any, it won't, I think it'll only send maybe ingots. I don't think it will send products to the assembler. So, but then again, this thing doesn't differentiate, so it's just going to probably start spitting everything out, and it's going to end up in the collector. Once the collector's full, I don't know what happens. It's probably just going to spew out, and it's going to be a jumbled mess. So you have to be careful. I would only do that with the ore. And there's probably some kinks to work out, but anyway, guys, this is the new patch with the conveyor tubes and all sorts of fun stuff, collectors and God, they're so similar in name. Collectors and connectors and conveyor tubes, which use conveyors. Conveyors aren't really the highlight, honestly. They're just like another tube block, but they're good for corners. That's it. You don't even need conveyors. You can use tubes 100% if you want. Just connect straight line up and then connect it to whatever you want. So I can just completely use tubes. But anyway, that's this patch, guys. Hope you enjoyed. This is Gamer Cole, Feel for Gamers, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm sorry if I seemed a little jumbled. I'm still new to tutorial videos, and but I still hope you enjoyed it nonetheless and learned something. If you have any questions, feel free to answer. This is what I've learned from a couple hours of research, and yeah, the systems are a little finicky still. But anyway, thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe.